Some phrases travel through entire generations, passed down from parent to child like an unwanted inheritance. Phrases we heard as children and now, almost without realizing it, repeat, like a script written decades ago that we keep performing, even when we know those lines no longer work. And here lies the question that few parents really ask themselves. Why do I do it? Why do we keep using words that made us feel small when we were on the other side? Why do we choose phrases that close conversations instead of opening them? It's easy to think they're just words, but beneath the surface, an entire psychological architecture is being built, one that defines how our children will learn to see authority, logic, and themselves. Because whether we admit it or not, every phrase we use with a teenager isn't just words. It's emotional education. It's how they'll see themselves in the future. First phrase, because I said so. There's a phrase every parent knows. 4 words that shut down any discussion faster than a slammed door. Because I said so. It sounds like power. In reality, it's surrender. It's the moment when a parent has run out of arguments and clings to the only card left, hierarchy. Your child has just built a 3-point argument with supporting evidence, and your counteroffer is executive privilege without explanation. But here's what's really happening in that moment. You're teaching that power beats logic. That reason is optional when you have rank. That questions don't deserve answers, only obedience. And while you think you're maintaining authority, you're actually building something very different. A teenager who learns not to ask you questions to your face but will keep looking for answers elsewhere. Research shows something fascinating. Kids who receive real explanations for rules develop stronger critical thinking skills. Those hit with "because I said so" simply become better at not asking, but behind closed doors, they still wonder why. They Google it, they build narratives about who you are and why you don't trust them. Because the teenage brain is designed to ask why. It's not defiance, it's biology. When you silence them with parental rank, you're not teaching reasoning, you're teaching power. And that's a lesson that will shape every future relationship they have. Second phrase. Money doesn't grow on trees. Then there's that phrase parents throw out when they want to teach the value of money, but end up only teaching that they think their kids are idiots who need economics lessons through botanical metaphors. The problem? This phrase doesn't teach financial literacy. It teaches sarcasm disguised as wisdom. It teaches that when a teenager asks about money, the answer is a joke about gardening instead of a real conversation. Because your child already knows money is earned. They know it from the moment they see you go to work every day. What they don't know is how much the mortgage costs, how much you spend on groceries every week, or why that pair of €150 shoes is too much. Studies on financial education show something interesting. Kids really learn to manage money through real conversations about budgets, costs, and trade-offs, not through jokes about photosynthesis. Instead of plant metaphors, try this. That hoodie costs €200, which is 20 hours of work at minimum wage. Now they're doing math instead of rolling their eyes. Now they're learning the real value of money. And paradoxically, they'll probably learn more about compound interest from a 19-year-old on TikTok than from your botany-based economics lesson. Because that person speaks their language, uses real examples, and doesn't treat their question as if they were dumb enough to think trees produce banknotes. Third phrase. When you're a parent, you'll understand. There's something subtly devastating about this phrase. The promise that one day, in some distant future, everything will magically make sense. The problem? Your child can't verify that statement for at least another 15 years. And the kids who will never become parents? Are they doomed to eternal confusion about why you can't knock before entering? Hidden translation. I don't have an explanation you'd understand right now, so I'm betting future you will validate present me. Psychological research shows something clear. Dismissing a teenager's concerns with predictions about the future actually damages parent-child trust. Teenagers, like all human beings, want validation now. Think about it. You're essentially saying their perspective isn't valid until they reproduce, that their current feelings, thoughts, and needs don't count because they haven't unlocked the parenthood level. And here's what happens when you use this phrase. Your child learns that their opinions have an expiration date, that they can't be taken seriously until they reach some arbitrary life milestone. And most of all, they learn that you're not willing to explain, to be vulnerable, to simply say, "This thing scares me." Fourth phrase. I'm not your friend, I'm your parent. Your child already knows that. They figured it out somewhere between the moment you forced broccoli into their mouth at age 7 and when you banned R-rated movies while all the other kids were quoting them at recess. But here's the hidden truth. This phrase usually appears when you're losing an argument. Your child makes a valid point, and suddenly you pull out the family org chart. I'm on top, you're below. It doesn't add logic, it only adds power. And there's a huge difference. Psychological studies show that the ideal point is parents who maintain boundaries but remain approachable. You don't have to be their friend, but you should be friendly. Because what your child really needs isn't a constant reminder of the chain of command. They need a safe place to land. And here's the paradox. When you wave hierarchy like a badge every time logic fails you, you're teaching that relationships are built on rank, not respect. That when you're not right, you can always fall back on power. But authority and love aren't the same thing. Authority is structure. Love is connection. And when you confuse the two, your child learns that being loved means being controlled. Fifth phrase. You'll thank me later. Later when? This phrase is basically parental code for, I don't have a reason you'll accept right now, so I'm outsourcing gratitude to future you. And here's the neurological problem. Research shows that teenagers struggle to process long-term consequences. Their brains are wired for the present, not for one day you'll understand. But there's something more subtle at play. This phrase reveals a fundamental disconnect between what parents think their kids will thank them for and what kids actually appreciate. You think they'll thank you for piano lessons? Reality? They'll thank you for not posting their baby photos on Facebook. They'll thank you for respecting their boundaries, for listening without judgment, for being there during the breakdown. And if you can't explain why something matters now, you'll thank me later, isn't a reason. It's a gamble. And like all gambles, sometimes you lose. Sixth phrase. When I was your age? Ah, yes. When I was your age, we didn't have phones. We had to talk to people. Great story. Should we pretend that's still true? Research shows something very clear. These back-in-my-day lessons don't bridge the generation gap. They widen it. You had to walk to your friend's house to see if they were home. They text all day. You had 3 TV channels. They have endless streaming. And here lies the fundamental disconnect. You're not sharing wisdom. You're comparing incomparable worlds. You're using your experience as the measuring stick for theirs, when in reality, they're 2 completely different maps. And when you keep going back to your youth, you're communicating something subtle but painful, that their struggles aren't legitimate, that they should be grateful because at least they don't have to walk 10 kilometers in the snow to get to school. But suffering doesn't work like that. Pain isn't relative, and being a teenager today, with all its unique complexities, deserves validation, not comparison. Seventh phrase. Is that what you're wearing? That question isn't curiosity. It's parental code for change, but I want you to think it was your idea. It's sabotage disguised as dialogue. And here's the hidden reality. Your child spent 45 minutes picking that outfit. They checked it in 17 mirrors, sent it to 3 group chats, and even did the sitting test. That outfit survived more rounds of approval than a NASA launch, and you just blew it up with a fake question. Psychological research shows that criticism disguised as a question cuts deeper than direct feedback, because everyone knows it's not a real question. And here's what really happens. Your child learns that your compliments always come with a hidden clause. That approval comes with conditions, that even when you're not directly saying something's wrong, they know you think it is. If there's a practical problem, say it directly. It's 5 degrees out. It might be too cold for tonight. If it's just your aesthetic preference, maybe keep it to yourself, because they're not dressing for you. They're dressing to figure out who they are. 8th phrase. You're too young to be tired. Sleep research shows that teenagers actually need more sleep than adults because their brains are still under construction. They're not being dramatic. It's biology. And don't forget emotional exhaustion. High school social life is basically 3D chess, blindfolded, and on fire. When you dismiss it with, "You're too young to be tired," you're essentially saying, your life isn't real. Which is rich coming from someone who brags about being tired after back-to-back Zoom calls. But there's something deeper here. When you invalidate your child's physical or emotional fatigue, you're teaching them not to trust their own body's signals. You're telling them their feelings are only valid if you approve them. And that's dangerous, because a teenager who learns to ignore their signals becomes an adult who doesn't know when to stop, who works until burnout, who thinks rest is weakness. These phrases don't teach, they shut down conversations. Remove them, and maybe your child will actually start talking again. Because in the end, the words we use with our children aren't just words, they're bridges or walls, invitations or closed doors. And the difference between a teenager who comes to you and one who hides from you often lies in the spaces between these phrases. In the spaces where there could have been curiosity instead of sarcasm, explanation instead of hierarchy, validation instead of comparison. And maybe when we stop performing the script we were given and start writing a new one, something changes. Not perfect, but more real, more honest, more human. Because that's what our children deserve. Not perfect parents with all the answers, but real parents willing to find the answers with them. Tell me in the comments if you've ever said or heard one of these phrases, and subscribe to the channel for more videos.